got to share in something beautiful and awe-inspiring and transcendent. The moon landings? It's hard to imagine, but this is what we have coming next summer. So find a way. Do not cheat yourself of this. And the ability to predict these eclipses, to know exactly where to go and where to see them, this is something that people have done for thousands of years, based upon looking at the sky, watching the patterns of the moon, and the sun, and the stars, and the planets as well. But in the last 100 years, we've actually made it tremendously difficult to pay attention to these patterns in the sky. We've made it almost impossible to see any star from where we live. So from Los Angeles, when you can see a dozen stars, and again, half of those are probably airplanes, we have almost trained our young people to not even bother looking at the sky. I can tell you that right now, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are going to be visible from Los Angeles. But no one's going to bother looking for them because everyone knows there's nothing to see up there. And if you don't bother looking up, why even notice the moon? Why notice its changing position and that it's getting closer to the sun and it approaches the sun and will one day cover it? You don't. You train yourself not to notice these things. And that is what we are losing here. We are losing them, well, because of lights, because of our civilization, the lights that we need, the lights that we use, and frankly, the lights that we don't need, but we don't care about. This is the lights of civilization. It's taken by a spacecraft looking down on the Earth. So think about that for a moment. Every spot of light that you see here is light shining up to illuminate a camera on a spacecraft. And you can see, we've got the lights of Europe. There's Italy. Galileo, 400 years ago, was the person to discover what the Milky Way was. The lights of distant stars all blurred together. Well, I take students to Italy every few years with replicas of his telescope to try to duplicate his observations. And I have yet to take them someplace where we can see the Milky Way. 400 years ago, everyone could see the stars, and only one person had a telescope. Today, anyone can have a telescope, and almost no one can see the stars. So this is what those lights do. And this is what's come from those astronomers that had that press release that came out with it a few weeks ago. They took all those points of light and figured out how that light would move across the sky, so that depending upon where you stood, how bright would be the sky directly overhead. And we've color-coded that from black and purple being the darkest, all the way up through the rainbow to greens, yellows, reds, and whites being the brightest. On top of that, we have the interstate freeway system, and in red here, ignore the little number. In red, we have Great Smoky Mountains, the Blue Ridge Parkway, Shenandoah. So in the red, we have the national parks. So here's the east coast of the U.S. The U.S. is very unique in developed countries in that we have half of our country that's a light half, and we have another half that's a dark half. And that's where it turns out, not coincidentally, a lot of the national parks are found. By the way, anybody happen to know what the dividing line is between the light half and the dark half? Mountains? Okay, here's Denver, and right there is Rocky Mountain National Park. So the Rocky Mountains are right about here. Okay, we've got Mississippi River. Let's see, let's go back one. There's the Mississippi. But you're close. Okay, so east of this line, rivers and streams run year-round. West of that line, and you're in the rain shadow of the Rocky Mountains, and rivers and streams become seasonal. This is the dividing line of the water, the 100th meridian. People follow the water, and lights follow the people. So out here in the dark half of our country, you've got Big Bend National Park down here in the blackness of West Texas. Great Basin National Park over here in the darkness of Nevada. Yellowstone, first park, up there in the northwestern part of Wyoming. And down here in south central Utah, we've got Capitol Reef, let's see, Arches, Canyonlands, Grand Canyon down here. Let's take a look at California. Okay. Death Valley, Joshua Tree. That's where I take my students to see darkness. And up here, we have Yosemite. Okay. So, here in California, as amazing as it is, if you want to go someplace where overhead is pristine, absolute, primeval darkness, you have to go up to the very northern, desolate, hard-to-reach part of Death Valley. And let's take a look at this. The Park Service has realized this. For about the last 16, 17 years, a group of park rangers have made it their mission to try to measure how bright and dark the skies are above their parks. And this is the sky above Death Valley. Here you have the band of the Milky Way going right overhead. There, as it turns out, happens to be Jupiter. And notice, the brightest thing other than Jupiter, well, in fact, actually the brightest thing, period, is this glow on the horizon off to the east and this other glow off to the southwest. Anybody happen to know what's to the east of Death Valley?
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.